you can help people help you, and then they feel like, oh, I can actually be myself with them, and I can tell them the things that I like. More and more I learn about myself through human design. I'm just feeling this kind of sense of affirmation where I'm like, oh, I was right. Hello, and welcome to the podcast Biz on the Brain with your host, me, Annemarie, where we talk about anything and everything related to being your truest, most authentic, and unapologetic self. And this is a new setup. I've not had anybody in person in any of my conversations and interviews, and so this is really, really exciting. And welcome to Greeshma. She is absolutely lovely, and thank you so much for standing in and like being my, little voice of reason, asking me all of the questions, because this episode and the season overall is all about what it is like to be a human design manifestor, because we're rare snowflakes and a lot of people misunderstand us, and we do that to ourselves as well. So I'm sitting down with a lot of manifestors to talk about what that's like, because everybody's different. And this first episode is just about what it is like overall, so we can clear up some of the different terminology that human design always has. It's almost like a language. And because Greeshma is pretty new to it, like I initiated her into what that even is. Like she didn't know anything about human design, like most people, and she didn't know that she was a manifesting generator, which also a lot of manifesting generators feel like we are like similar, and we're really not. It's just that the name sounds similar. So like it's really cool to have that dynamic here. And she's gonna ask me all the questions when she doesn't know what the heck I'm talking about, because maybe you don't either. So like that's the point of having this little setup. And I'm so happy that you're here, because it's so great to actually talk to somebody else instead of a screen, like here. You know, you can really, I'm sure you're really confused, like, where do I look? Just look at me. Just look at my mug. Alright, so, yeah.
So,
what do you know about human design? Do you remember anything I told you?
no, literally nothing. I don't remember anything.
That's perfect.
And I would like to know more about the human design.
Yes.
So, for example, according to my birth date and time, everything. So, I think I'm a manifesting
generator.
generator. So, what do you mean by this manifesting generator?
All right, so human design is like, I don't know, like a tool, like an almost interdisciplinary thing where this person in, what was it, I think in the 80s, Rahu, oh God, I butchered his name. He had like almost like a download, like an idea of, this just came out of nowhere, and he had this idea of merging different things like astrology and gene keys and other things. Like it's a whole complicated thing. He did a lot of calculations and a lot of digging deeper into different things, and came up with 5 types that he can like separate people into. And these are generators, and then there are manifesting generators, and those 2 types are sacral. So they can constantly generate energy, they can do projects, they can be consistently creative, like the types that we always hear about, like do something every day, you know, you gotta sleep your hours and you wake up fresh. I'm like, what is that? Like, I don't know. And then there's other types which are rare, because, you know, we got like 66 to 70% of people work like that. You know, like the typical 9-to-5 work is pretty normal. It's pretty okay with your system, just generally speaking. And then you got the projectors, which are basically the people who take all of the things that you create and the energy you put out there and kind of make it into more a reflective thing where you can see, okay, yeah, this is what's going on. They can give you the wisdom of what is going right and how to can improve that. And then I think they're like, I don't know, like over 10%. And then there's manifestors like me, which are like 8 to 9%. And we are the people who start stuff. We don't usually finish anything, or we don't have time or energy or like the inspiration. It feels like, you know, like Sisyphus, like pushing the boulder up, and now we're like, I can't do it. But like I can like kickstart rolling it down. I can roll it down. Like that's cool. And then I need like somebody else to like keep up with what I put out there, because it's just like most of the time we're like 80% we're just chilling. We're just like being potatoes and being like, I'm so like, I don't have energy because I don't have that sacral system, like, you know, in your body. Like it kind of splits the body into different centers that are defined, which tell you what you're really good at and how you can respond to people in a better way, because those defined centers really also define your personality. That's where people cannot really tell you what to do because you're already so defined in it. You're like, I feel really good in my identity. Nobody can tell me what I am. And then people like me, I have an open G center, which is for the identity. I constantly change, like depending on who I'm with, my accent changes. If I go to a different country, suddenly like I really like their culture and I like take this bit and that bit and like go to other countries and then I speak differently. I change all the time. And I always thought like, am I being weird? Am I being like, I don't know, you know, like, is this wrong to do this? Because I'm not doing it like consciously. But like the more and more you learn about these different centers, like in your head, there's two, then there's the throat, then there's the G center, your sacral, and then you have your roots, which is also giving you energy, which I have defined, which is why I'm always moving around, which is why I need to dance, which is why I need to climb on a mountain, like all of the bloom, just like I need to climb a mountain, and I just go up the mountain, like, why? You know, people are like, why do you walk everywhere? I'm like, I can't sit. Like, also I'm ADHD, so like I can't sit still. I'm like, I need to go, I need to use my body to do it. And then there is the spleen, so that's the intuition. I also have that defined. So I'm really, really good with getting in the moment, like knowing, you know, like, you know, you go down a dark alleyway and you're like, oh, no, I will not go down here. Something's off. And I can't even tell you what. I cannot tell you for the rest of me. Because also the subconscious, you know, has a lot more information to process than your brain can just consciously. So I'm always like, I'm trusting it. And it's always been correct. Like sometimes you meet a person, you're like, they're going to be my friend. You know, and I'm just like, I'm just going to be like, again, the initiating person. I'm going to like, oh my gosh, I'm going to like, I need you in my life. I need you. I like you. I need to know more about you. And people are like, what? You know, they're like, what is going on? I don't know this person. And she's like, intense. That's also a manifestor. Like I'm just like, I'm speaking to someone like, oh, this is a project we need to do. And you're like, I've never seen you before. Why would you do that? Like, what? And then, yeah. And then the last one is the solar plexus, which is basically your guts, like your emotions. Some people have this defined, and that means that they have big emotions. They're like, you know, like I'm asking you, like, do you want to buy the house? Then be like, oh yes, it's gonna be the best investment ever. And then you're like, no, it's gonna be the worst. Like I'm gonna sit on all of the money and like blah. And then they go like, yeah, but it's gonna be so like they're like up and down, until they're like flatline. They're like, okay, now I feel like cool about it, and then you can make the decision. Like those are, and now depending on what center you have to find, it gives you the main skill to make your decisions. For me, it's the spleen. It's difficult because it will be just giving you this kind of like ping, almost like a hit in the gut, and then it will just run away and never talk again. So like if I don't listen, I'm like, am I just hungry, or did I just get an idea, like do I go down the street or not? Like, and it doesn't talk to me anymore. It's just like, I told you, like I'm not gonna repeat myself. So like that's interesting when I learned that, because it's so true. Like when I was traveling, meeting these people, going down these roads, or like just making random decisions. Like I just wake up and I'm like, I'm gonna move to South Africa now. Like I'm just gonna go to Japan. Like and people are like, why? I'm like, I don't know. I just had this idea and it feels really important. And I can't tell you, but I need to do it. And then every time I did it, things just worked out really well. And then I had all of these amazing encounters, and people helped me with my business, or they gave me things I didn't even know I needed. So I thought that was really, really cool. And then 3 years ago, I think I learned about human design.
So this is the predefined things, right?
Yeah, like there's
So,
two sides of it.
For example, when I born,
Yes.
then everything was predefined.
Yeah.
So how can I improve these things? Like suppose if I'm really emotional. So
Yeah.
how can I improve myself? Like how can I say no? Like how can I, you know?
Yeah, so like that's really interesting, because there's two things that when you are born, like human design splits into like your design and your personality. So your design is something that was when you basically were conceived. It's like what the stars did in the sky at that point until you were actually born defines what your underlying personality and your underlying motivations, your underlying traits are, like what you're baked in. And then the personality is something that you're much more conscious of. So like, if I'm being loud or quirky, the way you were kind of, almost socialized out of, but you have more agency over that. The unconscious is more like what your purpose is in life and how you influence other people, how they see you. You don't really have much say in that. You just come into a room and people already feel something about you. So there's these two sides, and then the thing is with human design, it is so detailed. It's like a fingerprint. Everybody's so different. And then that human design isn't just like, you read a horoscope and then every Cancer is like sensitive. Like, it's not like that. It's just really like, sure, you're a manifesting generator and I'm a manifestor. But then you look at all of the different centers, then you look at all of the different planets in your subconscious and in your conscious, and then you look at where they were in your body. So like these different centers have different gates and they all have numbers and those specific numbers will tell you even more about yourself. Like, sure, maybe, I don't know, I don't remember your chart, but for me, like my spleen, my instinct are super defined. There's only 2 gates that I don't have marked, and all of the others are marked. And then I can see exactly what that means. Like, I have like a sense of smell in certain situations where I can almost smell danger, or I can always smell like an opportunity, or I can like hear something, and then sometimes I literally hear like it's almost like a tinnitus thing, like that sound where you're like, oh my gosh, am I getting that, like tinnitus? Like, then I listen on my headphones too much. But I can, I don't know how, but like tell the difference. Like, this is a warning. Like, that person means something bad for you. Like, you talk to someone like, oh yes, nice, so bye, and then I'm oversharing, and then I get that sound, I'm like, ooh, okay, stop. Like, I need to stop. Like, so like there's all of these different senses I can like tap into, and my design will tell me which ones are the strongest and like when. And it's really, really interesting because when you start reading up on the different gates, sometimes it's like they talk about me when I was like 5 and I had these questions like, is this normal? Like when you're a kid, you're like, is this normal when I do these things? And then the adults will give you their opinion. But the more and more I learn about myself through human design, I'm just feeling this kind of sense of affirmation where I'm like, oh, I was right. They told me it's not normal to hear things or like to feel like this person is good or bad, because a lot of people don't have that. Like, and so like that's my superpower and they don't have it. So they don't understand what it's like. But that doesn't mean it's not real for me. And I have a lot of proof, where I didn't listen to it and then they robbed me and stuff like that. I'm like, that's pretty real. And yeah, so like it's really cool to dive right into that. It's very overwhelming. There's a lot that I learn constantly. Like, I've been doing it for a year now, really in depth. And I have to stop all the time. I'm like, okay, I need to let it sink in. This is like, it tells me exactly how I need to network with people better if I look at this gate and that gate and with this planet. And it's just, there's a whole like different science almost, like you're learning a whole language. And so that can be really overwhelming.
How can I start my human design?
So like when you start with the journey, like the most important thing is know your type, right? Then just look up what that means, especially with the generator type in regards to what is different to a generator, your throat. And the manifesting is you have all kinds of different skills that you like to dabble in. So you're not a specialist, you like different things. And the difference to being a manifestor, because it's in the name, but it's not what I am. And, so like I start things, you keep going with things. And then you look at your authority, which is the most important thing. I think you need to know, like with your type, how you make decisions the best. And for you, it's emotional. So like riding the emotional wave until you're calm enough to then make a decision and being okay with big emotions. Even if it's a small decision, you cannot just make it on the spot. If you have the emotion, you need to ride it out until you're like calm and neutral.
Right. Quiet, then only I think.
Yeah. And I don't have that defined. I don't have these big emotions like that. And unless I'm like with certain people who have that, where I'm like, why do I feel so emotional? Like I almost feel like I'm soaking up their emotion. Then I'm feeling like, why am I suddenly so angry or elated or excited? Like, I don't know. Your other defined centers help you with the decision, but they're not as important as your emotions on it.
In your case, intuition is.
Yeah, it's really just like this one little voice saying yes or no, or like danger or something. And then the other things can tell me more information. Like I also have like my ego defined, which is my heart, that follow your heart, you know, where it's like, I want something, I desire it, I really want it. And I have like the stubbornness to go with it. Like that's the ego, the heart. But that's not as strong as the intuition. If it's like, even if I really want the thing, if my gut says like, no, then I have to listen to that, regardless of how. Like usually it works in alignment where it's like you will want it because it's for you, and then your gut is yes. And then it might be really scary and fearful, but your gut said yes. So even if I feel afraid, I will take the leap and trust that it is true, that I know what it actually feels like, and it wasn't just like, I'm hungry.
Yeah. And so even if you are emotional or maybe not so calm, you
that
can decide.
isn't for me to decide.
That doesn't
anything.
matter.
Yeah, like that's for me to know like this is not good for me to make decisions on, because that's not actually what I'm skilled in. Like this doesn't, because I change with my emotions depending on who I'm with, like my energy levels or like how tired I am. Like I can take it on. So like it's not even mine sometimes. Sometimes it's not really my emotion because I felt your emotion and I felt very sensitive, and then I take it on, and then I make a decision, and then by myself, and like that isn't a stupid decision. Like I actually don't want to do that. Like I don't actually feel like that, you know, because I didn't listen to my own authority. So like that's what the authority is. How you make the decisions based on what you're meant to do or what you're good at. Because that's different for everybody. That's why it's really hard to tell people what to do, because they don't know their body.
What are the other authorities?
The other authorities, like basically your centers, except for your head. That's never a thing. Never listen to like logic or the mind as well, because your body knows the answer, and there's different ways that the body talks to you, basically. Because there's some hierarchy in that. Like if you're emotional, then that's always your number one. If that's filled out, regardless of what your type is, that's your authority. Then I think it's sacral, and then there's the spleen, and the root. I think those are the only ones that you can have as authority, and the other things just help you make sense of the world, right? Or give you energy. And so like it's different for everybody else. And then there's also really important the self and the not self. When you you know, feel you're in alignment, or when you know something's off, it helps you figure out like what is off, what can I make, so I can feel in the self again, like, you know, be at peace or be satisfied. That's also different for each type. I don't remember the other types. Don't ask me. And then the not self, when you don't feel it, but it's the opposite, basically. Yeah, and then there's also the definition. I think we wanted to know that earlier. The definition is you could be either single, so like your defined centers are connected. Like, you know, you can like connect it, whatever, it's colored in. And you can just like draw it, connect the dots. And if you split, you can like connect it, but you have to like move the pencil up and then you connect it again. So it's two different lines that connect your centers together. So apparent, because I have a single one, like everything for me is connected. Everything talks with each other like all the time. But with splits, it's split. So it means you feel sometimes pulled into two different conversations or directions. Like your body's like, I want this, but I want it this way and this way. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? So like you have to listen to the authority again. That's like the boss over all of the things, right? And then there's people that have a triple split, like they feel like all over the place. They're like, okay, my gut says this, but then my throat says this, and then this says this, but okay. So like all of it feels right, but then again the authority says like, I'm the authority, this is what we do, so listen to this, right? And then if you want to get into it with the gates, there's the incarnation cross, which is basically, as far as I understand, being not an expert, like your gates are like filling out your centers and connecting sometimes. And if you put it on some different chart, it will suddenly like overlap, so it will be a cross. And that's the most important channels basically that you have with these defined gates. Basically I just Google it. That's what I think. It's just like, okay, this is what the chart says that I have as a cross, and then just type it into Google and then it tells you. You know. But that's also like one of the main things that drive you, which is more like in depth, but it's just like, okay, that is like your theme in life in a little bit. And then you can look up into the specific numbers of the different gates, and especially if they are connected, because you can have a center, regardless if it's defined, then it's completely filled out. So like a lot of channels actually are there. If it's completely open, that means there's no gate that you have access to. Like a reflector, like nobody touches that gate, so you completely are at whim of whoever you're with, because you can take on their energy. Sometimes you have like a gate, and even though it's not colored in, it's like it's not your authority, there's nothing helps you decide things, but you still might have a gate. So it usually is then maybe open and doesn't connect to the other gate at the other side of this channel. Right? It's like, I know it's a lot, and it's great if you have the visual, if you can pull up your chart and you look at the thing. It's already complicated enough. So like that's a hanging gate. If you have a gate but it doesn't completely connect with the entire line of the thing, that's where you can then find another person to complement you, and then you can like do cool stuff together. You know, like for me, I have this one gate open in my route. I forgot which one, but that's basically where you sniff out opportunities, like where you can sniff out this will bring me money or no. And I always says like I can always come up with the coolest ideas, but I never know which one's gonna make it. I always said that I'm like, I don't know how to sniff out the money. I don't know how to know this is a great opportunity, because everything is fun to me. But I'm the one who can, when there is an opportunity, I can make it work. Like I'm at the other end of that spectrum in my route. And so I recently talked to a friend about it, and she doesn't know anything about human design. And she constantly, whenever I'm meeting her, she's like, oh, you should try this thing. Like, you know, you just started a new photography thing. You should make these kind of blog posts about it, and like this SEO and this thing, and like you should do this thing. And I was like, great. And then I figured out that she has that gate, but she doesn't have my gate. So like that's why we always come up with the like business ideas, because she's like, this is a great idea, you should focus on this thing, not all the other things you want to do. They're all cool, but like this one will make it. And then I'm over here being like, okay, if I start doing it, then it works out, you know. So like finding those people to connect with the gates is really cool. And then there's also like the fun thing, apparently, if you can actually also do readings by experts, not by me, of your human design of your family or your partnership or even your business. Like it has its own design as well. It's like, that's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy to me. Because that could be a whole totally different dynamic. Like if you and your husband can be completely different, like maybe you're a manifestor, I don't know. You know, like you can get stuff started. Or like, you know, your family, when you have kids, like they usually are different types to another, who have the different gates, and then overall you're different. Then it also tells you about your digestion, so how you best eat food. It could be hot, could be cold, it could be, well, I'm calm. It could be, I think there's also something inconsistent, I don't know. Like there's different ways it tells you how you eat food in the best way. And I thought that's weird, but it makes sense. Like if I'm like rushed eating, which you know, for everybody is not good anyway. But, you know, I like sitting in coffee shops. I like working in coffee shops, but I need to put on my headphones, and I need to block everything out when I eat, and I can like enjoy the flavors, and I can like, I'm a foodie. Like if I like food, I will like love it. I will like adore my food, and I will be like, nobody talk to me right now. I'm just in my foodie zone. Like if I don't like the food, then yeah, you can talk. But if I like my food, I'm like, nobody distract me at all. Like, this is just me and my food, me having me time. Then I'm just like in the zone. Like, that's how I love food. That's the only time I really like food, when I'm like all the senses. Like, I'm just like doing my foodie dance. I'm like, oh my god, I love it. You know, it's just so cute. Look at it, taking 1,000 photos. Like, that's how I love eating. And then it tells me like carb, not, you know, not the other things. I'm like, that makes sense. Then there's also the motivation. So like what drives you into like new things. For me, it's desire. So like my info, it's like if I want it, like I will make it happen, you know, if it's there. Then there's perspective. So like if you're working more for yourself, like micro or macro of like the collective, if you're like, okay, I want to make a change, maybe just with me or maybe just with my environment, or if you want to be like big on the things or whatever. And then there's your cognition, which is also kind of like your different senses. like touch, could be inner vision, could be outer vision for me with the visuals. Like, you know, everything needs to be kind of pretty and stimulating for me to be frightened. Yeah, like I really, really need that. And some people are like inner vision, so they need to feel like they walk into a space and they feel the dynamics between the people, like, oh, they just fought, like somebody was just fighting right here. And they're like, oh, this place feels off. Like, maybe it's haunted. I don't know. You know, like I will look at the place, or I will look at the food. I'm like, no. And I can't even tell you why. I can like try to think. I'm like, oh yeah, there's this sign and that sign. But like, I will look at a place and I'm like, yes or no. You know, or like even if I go to Airbnbs, I'm like, yes. Like I always felt like, is this normal? Like, can I make snap decisions on the visuals? Like, I want to be like open book, don't judge by the cover stuff. But sometimes I'm like, there's something off. Like you can tell, but I don't logically know. I just know something was off, and I'm like, whatever, off. You know, believe it. Because left and right of your chart is your inner desire and your inner design, what was when you were conceived until you were born. That's when the stars in the sky did the thing. And then when you were born, that's the personality chart. So, you know, looking up at anything you kind of specifically want to work on, like I always like to look at first earth. So what grounds you, what keeps you, you know, happy and level-headed, for both conscious and unconscious, and just look at that number and just Google it. And then the same with the sun, like what your purpose is in life and how you influence other people in a way, like how they think you were there for them, right? It's like what you want to do and what other people want you to do, and to look at that and then see like, oh, is this actually what drove me, right? And then there's the south node and the north node, which tells you basically what you used to do when you were growing up. Like the influences for me was like, I was still a people pleaser. I needed to like be safe and be quiet. And then after, what is it? I'm not good with astrology, but like after a certain point in your life, which is like around the age of 42, I think, suddenly you become different. Maybe for me, it is that I'm suddenly completely individualistic. I'm just like focusing on me, just me. And reading that can feel like, oh God, am I not an individual, selfish asshole? But again, it can inspire you to do your thing so that you can help other people, because you got this passion for something that you thought was only for you, but it had a bigger impact, which you don't know until you do it, right? So unless you're like, you know, taking people's money and stealing things left and right and hurting people, like, that's not what I talk about. Then just looking up that and then knowing your lines. Like, I think that's also important. Everything's important, honestly, but there is your profile, your human design profile. So you have your authority, which is your emotional and the splenic. And then there's the profile, which has 2 numbers. You know, for me, it's the 4-6, which means I'm a people person. Like, I'm the opportunist. I need to like talk to people. I need to network with people. I need to build a community, but I also need to not see them, which is the 6, which is like, I'm just a role model of sorts where people like project their stuff on me in a little bit. But it's, for me, it's also split into like, there's a lot you can read into that. So like, that's great when you see those lines and you read up on what does that number mean and what was the other number mean. And that's your overarching theme in life, right? And then you can also use those tiny numbers. When you look up your planet, you look up the gate, which says that it is for your planet. And there's like 2 numbers with the design and the personality, right? But it has another number after it, which is the lines. So I would just say you look up the planet you're most interested in. And then you just Google the gate, and then you Google the next number, which is the line next to it. And then you just read both at the same time. And then you just combine them. Like, okay, if I have this gate and it's all about building community, and then I have the next line, which is about 4, and then that's about networking. Then you're like, oh, so I'm building community by actually getting myself in front of people, not by like being online and just like talking about my blog by myself. You know, like when you combine it, you're like, oh, that's really great. And then suddenly that was your son. So like, that's actually your purpose. So maybe your purpose is to create communities with everybody. but your purpose could be different for like the next planet, like Mercury, how you communicate with people. Maybe that's, you need to do it by yourself and need to think about it. Maybe you need to specialize in it. And then you have a line that supports that, like I think 5 is like the hermit, like, so reading it together helps you understand better how you're being influenced by the stars, but also how you can show up in whatever field in life you currently look, like Venus for love and relationships, Mercury for like business and money and communication, all of that. So like that's a way to dive right deeper without doing it all step by step, because I started looking each gate up, and then I started looking at planets, and I was like, well, that's basically the same but more information. And so I would recommend doing the planets, what you're interested in, with the gate and the line together.
And suppose if I want to improve my communication, then how can I do that?
While looking at your Mercury, and then looking at the gate and the line.
And the number?
Yeah, then the number you just Google. That's what I do. Because I'm not an expert. I don't know these things by heart. And there are so many people who do readings. Like I know people who do. I'm not going to do that. I'm not the expert. But if anybody wants to, I can put you in contact with them. This is not sponsored by anything or anyone, but I just wanted to share that because it's so fascinating when you learn about these things. But it's actually not new. Like it's not something like, oh, I never knew that. It's just like, oh, I didn't honor it. Like I should have listened to this, but I didn't, because people told me I shouldn't, because it doesn't make sense to like have a spontaneous decision to move countries, and it doesn't make sense, and that's the point. It shouldn't make sense. Your brain should be like out of it. Like the brain is for digesting the information and keeping you safe, or like as a member in society, but it's not there to make your decisions. That's what your body is for. And that's why you have an authority that tells you what part of the body is the most in tune with what you need to do. And I can't tell you what that is, and you can't tell me what that is. So like that's why I love the human design things, because it feels liberating. It feels like yes. And then I also have words to them to say, yes, I make decisions they seem illogical, but I told you this, and now you know. So you can't take that away from me, and gave you you can use it against me if I already told you. And as for me, as a manifestor, to go back to like why I even started the podcast, as a manifestor, my main thing, that is my strategy, right? Is to inform people. So like I need to tell people what I'm gonna do, maybe why I'm doing it. Most of the time I do not know. But I need to tell people like, okay, I'm gonna go travel to the country next week. Bye. Like I'm working on this project, and then sometimes I need to inform people so they can either get out of my way and let me do it. Like sometimes when I need to be by myself because I'm starting this new thing, and then I need all of the energy and you cannot talk to me because I need to make this happen until I run out of the energy. Otherwise I get really angry. Right? So like I tell you like, okay, please don't call me in the next 2 weeks because I will get really angry. It's not you, but it's me, but don't call me. So like at least you're like, okay, she isn't dead, or she doesn't hate me, and so you're like, I don't want to get yelled at or whatever. I don't yell at, so like you're safe, I'm safe because I told you, and you're like, okay, cool. You don't have to tell a story about it, you're like, oh, she never calls me ever. It's like, no, I told you, I'm just gone. I need to work, and then we can talk. Then I'm a human again, And so my information is like telling people, okay, I'm gonna move countries. You can't tell me I shouldn't. You can't tell me I should start this project, or you can't tell me what to do. I'm just giving you the information, and then what you do with it is not my business. And that's really hard for me because I always get people having a big reaction to what I'm just announcing. Like, especially if it's a big thing, like, oh, I'm just gonna sell everything and move, or I'm just gonna start this new business, or I'm just gonna start the virtual photography, and people are like, oh, you shouldn't do this. This is very insecure. Like, you don't know what's gonna happen. I'm like, I know, but nobody's going to know what happens anyway, right? And so informing people helps them to support you, or for you to also realize who doesn't support you, or what you can share, because that for me is really hard when I inform people and then they're like, I support you, but when you feel like they want to keep you safe, and then they just try to make it realistic and then take all away the dreams to keep you safe and keep you like in this little box, like all cushioned, like you're safe, nobody can do anything if you don't do anything, right? And then just like sitting there like, I hate it. Like, where's my passion? Where's that motivation? I just had all of this energy to do the thing, and now you talked me out of it, but instead you were supportive. So like that for me is really difficult with informing people. I'm like, okay, I'm telling you what I am doing. I do not want your information on it. Like, you know, like when you ask people for advice, that's okay. But if I want to share a problem and I tell people I don't want your advice, I just need to talk, because that's how I process things. When I talk with my throat, you know, my defined throat with the manifesto. If I talk it out loud, I'm like, oh, that's what I'm thinking, because now I can hear it. It's different than hearing it in my head. If I talk it out loud, suddenly I feel like an information comes out of nowhere that I didn't have. And then I don't, unless I ask him, like, maybe you can, like, I have an idea, like, can I tell you what I think? And then I'm really like, I'm listening to myself, yes or no, like, maybe yes or no, not now. Or maybe yes, right? But you can't just tell me, this is the best solution to your problem, like, whatever. You know, it's not a problem. Then I feel angry. Like, how would you know? How would you know? It makes sense for you, but it doesn't have to make sense for me, right? So yeah.
So it helped you to know you more.
Yeah, exactly. It helped me to understand myself more, to be nicer to myself.
What should you do?
And to, and then to also understand that I don't really know much about the other person. I can like tell the stories, or I can just ask them. And you know, most people are sacral like you, so they their strategy is to respond. Like I start things, I inform people of new stuff, or whenever I'm planning that they never saw coming. They're like, wait, you're moving, you're doing this thing, you did that thing. I thought you did this thing, that was last week. Now this week I'm doing that thing. People are like, I can't keep up. Right? And so I'm telling you, then you can respond, be like, oh, I want to do this too. Like, you know, I want to join the project. That sounds really cool. Like, you'd be like, I don't care. Don't keep me updated, you know? Like, I just inform, then people respond to that. They, you know, either love it or they hate it, or they don't care at all. And that way I also know who are my people for the project or my life or whatever, by looking at the positive people who are like, I love your energy, I love your ideas, I love whatever the project is. And then they ask me to hang out or to do the project. And then I'm not focusing on the people who hate it. And I'm like, I'm not here to make you see what I'm doing. Like, no, like, I don't have the time for you. You know, like, it's not my job to do this. And I think that's really beautiful when you realize that actually being then rejected by these people is good, because now you know we're not on the same line right now.
You're not aligned.
No, and that's okay, because, you know, they do their thing, and that's good, and I do my thing, and that's cool. And so I don't have to convince people of my value or my mind or, like, the illogical thing, because they don't get it, and it's not my job to make them get it, because it won't change. And maybe it changes if it's aligned for them at some point, but that's not my job. Right? And so, like, looking at what works for me and looking what, the more and more I do the thing that makes me happy and that makes me feel like I'm doing something in alignment, even if it's so weird, you know, the more and more I do that, the more people I attract, and then those people will connect me with other people, because, you know, I'm the opportunist. And then suddenly things just work out for me. Like, you know, when I moved to Australia, because I was so angry for everybody telling me what to do, and I was depressed and very sad. And so I moved to Australia and I hated everything. I was stomping onto the mountains. I was like, I hate it. Like, don't tell me, you know? And then I just met people who were like, you seem like your dad to want to talk. I'm like, okay. And then I was just like crying to these random strangers on the street. And I'm like, oh, you know, tender, let it out. I was like, oh. And then they were like, I like you. I'm like, with my snot and my tears. And they're like, I mean, I don't like that, but like, I like you, you know? And then I was like, oh, okay, I can, like, I'm likable even if I'm a mess. And then I, you know, felt better. And then I met people who saw me in my good days when I was like, oh my God, like, I didn't take any medication because I didn't know I had ADHD. And it was like, you know, like the Energizer bunny, just like doing this thing, that thing, trying this thing, that thing. And I was thinking like, oh my God, like being adults, we can't just do all the things. And then some people were like, I'm like it's really cool, keep it up. And I was like, I can't. I'm okay if I'm doing all the things all the time. And if I don't finish things, they're like, no, it's cool, it's cool. I'm like, oh my God. And then just opportunities came because they were like, oh, I know this person who knows this person. And then that person gave me this thing and then that thing. And then somebody had a business, you know, because they were like, oh, here's a coach that can help you with your pitches. Or here's somebody who can make your media kit. I'm like, what is a media kit? You know? And then people just gave me things and they didn't expect anything. Like this one person who just printed business cards for me because I didn't have, I was like, why would I need it? And he's like, come back tomorrow. He gave me like 200 business cards. He's like, here you go. I'm like, oh, who are you? Why? And it's like, you just needed it. Like, here, goodbye. No expectations, nothing. And he was just like, I like you, I like your project, and here's business cards for free. And I was like, oh my God. You know, like stuff like that, when you realize, oh, if I just do the thing that I feel kind of compelled to do, when I'm like drawn to these things, and I just like actually listen to it and don't constantly question it when I'm like, I'm just gonna walk down the street because I feel like I need to walk down the street. I don't know why, but I'm just gonna do it or whatever. And then suddenly like I meet this person, and that person invites me to this event, and that eventually is featured with this event, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, it's just really in the flow. And that's after I discovered human design, looking at all of this, and just like, that makes so sense. Like, I can really see where I started listening to all of the things that I didn't read about myself. And then when I stopped, how I was so angry at everybody and everything and at myself, and how things didn't work out anymore because I was like, I need to be a responsible adult, I need to sit here and need to work now every single day, and only then I can go see fun things. And then it was horrible. And then I got sick, and I was like, oh, why am I not sick? This is inconvenient. And it got worse and worse and worse until I was like, you know what, I'm gonna travel the country now, I'm just gonna go somewhere else. And then things worked out again. I was like, what? You know. But that's different for everybody else, so that's why I love him. When you read up on it, you're like, no, actually, like some people are like, I need to not move all around all the time. Like I need to be safe in this one space, or I need to have smaller communities. Like some people have like the environment as mountains. Like they don't need to have the people, or like kitchens. Like they do like to have people, but just close network. They don't need to go to a market. They actually want to know the people and maybe, you know, eat something with them. And if you know that, then it's like, you just do it, and then it feels just good because it feels natural to you. And if it doesn't, then you just ignore whatever the designs it is. Like you don't have to take it as a cult.
And do you believe in law of attraction?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you applied some techniques in your life?
I mean, yeah, basically also, I guess, if you really apply the human design, if you like, I believe in it, that's also law of attraction from like, okay, I'm a networking person, so I gotta go to the networking things. And then if I like really believe in it, instead of being like, this is gonna be stupid, if I'm just like, yes, okay, this is what it says, this is what I'm gonna do. And then you start doing it and you're looking for, you know, your confirmation bias. And then you're like, oh yeah, like I talked to this person and I connected that person with the other person, and now suddenly I have opportunities through them, and they have opportunities, and you know, they connect. Like, you know, you can see how things work out when you just look for things that could work out. Like if your mindset is on like, I'm gonna make this happen, I don't know how, but I'm like sure it will happen. If you're like really, really sure, and you're like looking for ways how to make this happen, it's like, what step can I take to take me there, instead of being like, it's not gonna happen, like then you're holding yourself back, and then you stop seeing the opportunities, or you're like, I don't know, this sounds too good to be true, you know, like then you're in your own way. So if you're like, what you want to attract, you know, could be, I'm the victim, everybody hates me, then yeah, but you can find proof for that. But if you're like, okay, let's look at the things where stuff worked out for me, where life was really good, what did I do? What can I replicate, and how can I attract it? Because I've done it before, I can do it again, right? And so definitely, I believe that the law of attraction is, I mean, real, right? They proved it. Also, like this, you know, your neurology, what you keep thinking about will like program your patterns and your way of thinking, then inform your body language, how you project yourself out to other people, and then they interpret that. So if you're constantly like hunched over me, like nobody likes me, everybody overlooks me, and then you just show up in rooms like that, and yeah, people will be like, are they scared? Like, I'm not going to talk to them. Like, I don't want to startle them, right? And then if you go into the room, be like, hi, I'm here. Everybody loves me. I'm like the center of attention. And people will definitely look at you. They're like, why did I think they're the center of attention? And then you see everybody staring at you thinking, but you're like, they know I'm the center of attention, even if they like thinking like they're weird. But like you still in this moment are the center of attention, so it is true. You can't control what people think, but you can control what you think in a way, and then also that informs how you feel, and that informs your body and then your habits and like whatever. So like
and it's more about how we present ourselves too.
And that all of that comes down from your thoughts, but that also is largely due to your subconscious. So like if you keep saying affirmations, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, like it sometimes just feels like you're lying to yourself, because unconsciously you've been trained your belief that it's not true. Like, so the more and more you say it, you're like, I'm a purple frog, frog, like it doesn't make you a purple frog, right? But if you just question your knee-jerk reactions or like triggers or like your thoughts that come off pretty easily that are like something that you don't want to have anymore, then you look at your subliminal conditioning basically. You're like, why do I always feel like this when they say that comment? And then this is like my fear of being seen, my fear of being abandoned, and my fear of not being lost, whatever. There's all of these underlying things that can help with like, looking into psychology and like child wounding and all of that. That I think is also great with the human design to use that to help heal yourself by actually honoring your internal guidance, because your body always talks to you. Like you can feel your body flinching away from the fire, like just like, oh, let's just like touch her. Like your body will be like, no, we're not doing it. And so like, why do we keep finding ourselves in a lot of ways every day when we're like being shamed or hurt or like having a comment that we don't like? Why do we keep it to ourselves instead of being like vocal about it? Like, no, that hurt me. That is a comment I don't want you to repeat. Otherwise, like, I can't talk to you anymore. Like setting the boundaries. And then usually don't set the boundaries.
With your insecurities.
Yeah, by just first being aware of like, what is the thing that I'm reacting to? How am I reacting? How does it feel in my body? Like, what does it do? And then maybe you can ask yourself why, but usually it's also about how you want to be instead. So sometimes it's just about talking about it, because usually, in my opinion, it's like there's always like shame around a lot of things. So like when you actually say it out loud, that can be the most scary and activating thing. And then that can also be healing, because then people hear what the problem is, and they can be like, let's resolve this. This was not my intention. This has nothing to do with whatever happened to you in the past, but let's just keep space for you so you can like be safe. Like you can tell me, I'm like, every time you come home and the door sounds like you're angry, I get really triggered because I feel like I'm responsible for your happiness. So like if somebody's mean to you at work and you come home mad, then I need to make you feel happy. That's not my job actually. But like, like maybe I've been growing up like that, where I feel like everybody's emotions are my responsibility. I need to make everybody happy, like otherwise maybe I'm not safe. And when you have like a safe relationship with you, like, oh my gosh, you look really mad, and they could be like, yes, I'm really mad, like this happened, that happened, but it's not your job. I'm gonna go to my room, I'm gonna like calm down in my way, and then I can talk to you. Like, it's not your job. Like, you can help me be happier, but it's not your responsibility to work with my emotions. You didn't cause any of that. I'm an adult. I can like help myself ground as well. Like when you realize that maybe that was your problem, that they've like come home angry and then you felt really, really sad, and angsty, and they didn't know that because they didn't have to grow up like that, right? And so, yeah, talking. And then knowing what they need, you know, through either maybe they don't know, and then you explore it together with human design or without or whatever. But yeah, just first be aware, see the pattern, be nice about it. Like, you can't just shame yourself into like fixing it. Like, you shouldn't feel like that. Like, it's just like, okay, I observed this like an anthropologist. You just naturally like took a note. Okay, every time this happens, this is what I do. Do I like this? Yes or no? Okay, let's see what I can do better. And then just try to, like, it will take time, but ultimately you can like kind of reprogram yourself. Like, sometimes
Like reparenting.
yeah, you can reparent yourself. You can do hypnotherapy. You can do therapy. You know, inner child work, shadow work. There's all of kinds of like body, physical work. You know, like meditation, breath work, somatics. Yeah, so many ways to do this. And so like, yeah, so human design is just like one little thing that can help you without looking at all of the trauma. It can help you just like right now, like in this moment, how do I feel the most aligned? And that can also already be healing when you listen to yourself, and then that can give your body more space and feeling of safety to be then more communicative with you in a moment where like, this is really unsafe, I feel really triggered, and then you can get the help you need. Even if it doesn't make sense, or if it's overreacting, it's not, it's just an emotion. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That was a lot. Yeah. That went into a different direction too. But yeah, I hope it made sense to anybody watching this. If there's questions, I may answer them. You know, I'm a manifestor. I don't respond to things unless I feel I want to, which is, again, it sounds so selfish, but it's so overwhelming. But yeah, there's all of the links down below if you want to read your design for free, and there's multiple places. If you want to have a professional reading done, I can connect you with people. I'm not the person to do this. And yeah, just look it up. If you want to tell me, if you want to inform me of what you are, love to hear it. I always find that fascinating. And I'll see you in the next episodes with actual manifestors like me, talking about what it is like to be a manifestor, because everybody's different. It's fascinating. So that's it. Thank you so much, and wish you a lovely day, week, until next Friday. Bye.